Three murders that centered around the same mall would occur in 2007. Are they related, or is it just a complete coincidence? Hello, true crimeers. This is the case of the Boca Raton Town Center Mall murders. Viewer discretion is advised. Before we get into today's case, please make sure if you are a fan of true crime and you like hearing true crime stories, please give this page a subscribe and this video a like. I also tell true crime stories over on TikTok. You can find my new main page in the link tree in the description of this video below. My original page with 3 million followers was recently banned. I don't know if I'll get it back. We'll see. But I tell shorter form true crime stories over there. But into today's case. Randi Gorenberg was born in Brooklyn, New York, and that was in 1955. She got her last name by marrying Stuart Gorenberg in 1979. The two of them would go on to have 2 children together, and eventually their family would move from the New York area down to Boca Raton, Florida, because I guess he was opening up a new chiropractor business down there. They were a pretty well-to-do family. They made decent amount of money. They lived in a very comfortable but upscale neighborhood. And Randi was described as just like this really, really good, very protective mother. She absolutely adored her kids. She was very involved in their education. She was always volunteering at their school. Not to mention she volunteered for other charities outside of the kids' school. And Randi was just a very down-to-earth, very loving, very cool woman. It was March 23rd, 2007. Randi at that point is 52 years old, and she decided to go shopping at a popular mall there at the town center. It's known as the Boca Raton Town Center Mall, I guess. She wasn't there very long. She would go into the Old Navy to buy some clothing items, and then she went into a music store and she purchased a CD, and then she was caught on camera leaving the mall. And no one was with her, no one was following her. Within that same exact hour, witnesses would call 911 because they said, and this took place about 5 miles away from the mall, there were a few gunshots heard, and then an SUV kind of sped down the road when someone stopped it, threw a woman out of the SUV, and then that car just continued to speed away. When, witnesses approached the woman, they could tell she was deceased. She had at least 2 bullet wounds in her head, and she wasn't responsive. She wasn't breathing. But 911, obviously sent out an ambulance and police, but the woman was pronounced dead at the scene, and it was confirmed to be the body of 52-year-old Randi Gorenberg. So it was her black Mercedes SUV that was basically seen during all of this. So they quickly discovered that that was a stolen vehicle and that these people obviously clearly murdered her. I guess they would find her SUV in a Home Depot parking lot not too soon afterwards. They were able to pull up CCTV footage, I guess. I don't have any images of it, but they saw when the black SUV pulled into the Home Depot parking lot, and it was followed very, very closely by another car, which they determined was like a white Chrysler sedan type vehicle. However, I guess the footage is just really not good enough to determine like a license plate. They didn't really see the people kind of getting in and out of these vehicles, but the SUV it was left there, it was abandoned. And when police were able to recover it, when they spoke to Randi's family, they realized that Randi's wallet was missing, her shoes, her purse, and her cell phone. All of that stuff was gone. What they found strange was that literally on her were very expensive jewelry items, something they could have easily taken off and sold, but for some reason they left them on her. Apparently, they would actually look into Randi's husband and also her, at this point, adult son. I guess, for some reason, Randi's son gave a false alibi about where he was when this happened. Police would claim that her husband's behavior didn't seem very shocked, But you have to understand, too, that everybody reacts to these horrible things in very different ways. You can't possibly expect a person to react the way you expect them to react. We all have a very different emotional response to these types of things, and we never really know how we're going to act until it happens. So anyway, they don't know why the son gave a false alibi. Apparently, he also gave them the incorrect clothing items, but that all being said, they looked very much into both of them. They cleared them. They realized that these two men had nothing to do with the murder of their wife and mother. They don't know why they had odd behavior, but they had odd behavior. And that's pretty much all it was. Her case sort of started to go cold a little bit. They're putting out information on the news as much as they could. They wanted to keep some things close to the chest because they don't want to reveal everything in case the killer slips and says the wrong thing. They'll know that's the right person. But they would receive a tip from an informant in a local prison. This informant said that while he was in the prison, he overheard these gang members saying they knew who was involved in the murder of that particular woman. They said the man's name was Mikhail Barrera. And what they explained was that that he was a member of, and I guess they were too, of the gang, the MS-13 gang, and that this was something to do with that, perhaps an initiation type thing. And when they looked into Mr. Barrera, they discovered that one of his relatives actually owned a white Chrysler vehicle, one that looked similar to the one that was seen in the CCTV footage, but the footage of the car was not perfect. And they never are. I swear to God, they never are. They're always like too far away, too grainy to really make out any kind of significant details. They couldn't see the people involved. And ultimately, while this kind of tracks, they had no physical evidence to connect Mikhail Barrera to the murder of Randi Gorenberg. They had nothing. They had no physical evidence to connect anyone, like fingerprints, DNA. Nothing that they have has been able to trace to someone. And ever since then, Randi's murder has gone unsolved. 5 months after Randi's murder, now on August 7th, 2007, another woman is at the Boca Raton Town Center Mall. She is shopping, and as she leaves, she is abducted by someone. She was also there with her 2-year-old son. She was actually abducted after she loaded her son into the car, his stroller and all that. She got into the driver's seat, and then this man just gets into the car with her, basically holds her at gunpoint. He then forces her to drive to an ATM to withdraw $200. He kept making her withdraw $200 until the machine told him that they couldn't do that anymore because there are ATM withdrawal limits everywhere. Then he makes her pull into this another parking lot where he, at gunpoint, forces her to swap seats with him so that he drives, and then he puts some zip ties around her wrists. He then, I guess, takes out a knife and essentially is threatening her, but she said he also kind of seemed to become nicer, that he asked her if the restraints were too tight. She said yes, and so he actually loosened them for her. And then he pulled off to some location where he told her, when they ask you who did this, say that I'm just some short, fat, black guy, which was not his description at all. The man then basically got out of the car and left her. He left her tied up. He dialed, I guess, the phone number on her cell phone to her husband, so she was able to get a hold of him. And as she's waiting for him, and then at this point now the police are on their way, she is freeing herself from her restraints. She's checking on her son. He basically was asleep pretty much this entire time. He really didn't even know anything was going on. Police were kind of assholes to her. And her name, by the way, has never been released. She's just known as Jane Doe. She said they gave the impression that they felt she was lying, that there was no way she could have gotten out of the restraints if they were tied up the way she said they were. That her car, because I guess she has this pass to get to certain, areas, a sun pass. She said that it was used during this altercation, but police said it wasn't used. And she gave them a description of the guy, and through that description, they were able to come up with an artist's rendering of the man. And, but they still sort of treated her like she was just making this up. But what reason would she have to make this up? She did have bindings still on her. Later on, they would discover that the pass that was used, that she said was used to go through this turnpike or whatever, when they said it wasn't used, well, they found footage of her car going through the turnpike when she said it did, when she was abducted. And that's how they discovered that her car just malfunctioned. And at that point, they wanted her to take a lie detector test, by the way. And they're like, well, this is really not so much for you. We want to give you a lie detector test to kind of help, catch the bad guy, which doesn't make any sense. I don't know if she took the lie detector test or not, but ultimately they flipped and they ended up believing her story because they had footage of her car where she said it was, and they found out her card malfunctioned, but that it was attempted to be used. And so her story was real. So now they have this image of this guy, or this drawing of this guy. And they're wondering, was he maybe the one involved in the murder of Randi Gorenberg? They weren't really sure, and then another murder happened. Actually, 2 more murders happened. Nancy Bochicchio was born on August 21st, 1960, and she, oddly enough, was also born in New York, but in the Bronx. Nancy was described by many friends and family as a very tough woman. She had a tough exterior, but she was a super kind person as well. Very caring, very loving, but she also didn't really take shit from anyone. She was very no-nonsense, but at the same time, she was also very charitable, very friendly, very outgoing, was always there to help people in need. But if you ruffle her feathers, if you piss her off, she's going to she's going to tell you. Is kind of what I'm getting from her. She was a part of a very tight-knit Italian family, so that probably explains it too. She loved to garden on the side, but as her job, she was actually a stock analyst. She owned her own business. She was very successful. And eventually, Nancy would relocate from New York to Boca Raton, Florida. And at the time, she was dating a man named Philip Hauser, and he moved down there with her. In 1999, when Nancy was actually 39 years old, she found out she was pregnant, and she was super excited about it. And she would then end up giving birth to their daughter, her and Philip's daughter, Joey Bochicchio Hauser. After about 2 or 3 years or so, Nancy and Philip's relationship kind of began to strain, and they would end up separating, but Philip still remained a big part of Joey's life, and he was a really good dad to her as well. Joey, at the time of this story, she was only 7 years old, but she was described as a really friendly young girl. She loved ballet. She loved playing golf. She liked to sing karaoke. This little girl, she says she wanted to grow her hair long so that she could cut it and donate it to Locks of Love. That's just the type of kid that she was. A couple of days after this case happens with Nancy and Joey, Philip Hauser would find a scribbled out note that Joey had left for him the last time she saw him. The note just simply said, "To Dad, I love you. Me and Mom, we are together in your heart. Your daughter, Joey." And it would turn out that would be the final message that she ever wrote to her father. It was December 12th, 2007. 47-year-old Nancy, she picked up her 7-year-old daughter from school, and she took Joey to a scheduled doctor's appointment that Joey had, and then afterwards they would go to the Boca Raton Town Center Mall. This is surveillance footage of Joey and Nancy walking into the mall at, I believe, 2:11 p.m. And then they are picked up on camera, I guess, walking past a Foot Locker store, I believe. It's just the two of them. There's no one else that seems to be following them, no one else that seems to be bothering them. And then they are later observed leaving the same way they came in at approximately 3 p.m. Again, no one seemed to be following them. There wasn't any suspicious people walking near them. But At 3:14 p.m., 911 received a phone call from Nancy's cell phone, but the call immediately dropped. 911 tries to call back the phone, but nobody picks up. Nancy was supposed to take Joey, I guess, to a friend's house, or there was something with a play going on later that night, like a rehearsal or something, but they didn't show up for it. And it wouldn't take long to find out why, because a security guard at the Boca Raton Town Center Mall found this black SUV just parked by itself in the middle of the parking lot after the mall was closed. And when he looked inside, he saw two people. Both appeared to be deceased. So he calls 911 and police arrive, and they do confirm that there are two bodies in the car, 47-year-old Nancy Bochicchio and 7-year-old Joey Bochicchio Hauser. Both had been shot to death. They determined that both were shot point blank range in the head. They were both bound with like duct tape and zip ties, and it appears that the bindings on Nancy had been broken. They just didn't know if she did that or if the killer did that or how that happened. They don't know. Nancy also had like goggles put over her eyes, like they were blacked out so that she couldn't see. They did determine that there were missing items like her purse and her cell phone, and credit cards were missing. Not too soon after the murders, they found that a man named David Goodman had used one of Nancy's stolen credit cards. And they tracked him down, and basically he said he found the credit cards, that they were just sort of there on the ground. And they had no evidence to suggest that he had anything to do with the actual murders. Like, there were no images of him on the CCTV at the mall or anything like that. They also discovered that a man named Charles Jackson had Nancy's cell phone. They were able to like ping it and find its location. And he said basically the same thing, that he just found it on the ground. And he didn't know the other man. They didn't have any connections whatsoever. And it all kind of appeared, as kind of crazy as it sounds, it does appear to be truthful. That these like stolen items were just chucked on the side of the road after, I guess, whoever did it, killed them, was done using them, or not 100% sure. They did find CCTV footage, though, of Nancy's SUV going through an ATM. And this was before she obviously was found, but after she left the mall. They just couldn't see anyone who was driving it. So they obviously probably got money out of Nancy. But they found no physical evidence, no circumstantial evidence, really, no witnesses, anything like that to point those particular two men with the credit card and the cell phone that had anything to do with the murder. And essentially they were able to clear them, that they just literally found these items that the killer just disposed of. They combed through the footage of the mall of like, when Nancy and Joey left, when they entered, they found CCTV footage throughout the mall. There was never anyone near them. There was never anyone following them. There was no indications that they were in trouble in the mall or just outside the mall. Now, with Randi Gorenberg, then the Jane Doe who survived, and then Nancy and Joey Bochicchio, they really can't say for sure that they're all actually connected, but they have so many similarities that suggest that they have all been done by the same person. Or it could be three completely different people who did three completely different crimes that are similar in nature. They did discover that after the second case, the Jane Doe who was kidnapped and survived, they discovered that not too soon after her, a couple of days later, another woman came forward to say that she was basically abducted and forced to go to an ATM. She would end up describing that man, and he was very similar in appearance to what the Jane Doe had described. But then police wondered that if Jane Doe was part of the same person who committed the, outside murders, why wasn't she killed? And they said because a profiler would say that it had a lot to do with like control, that because Jane Doe had a 2-year-old child, she remained calmer and just sort of did what he said. Whereas like with Randi Gorenberg, she may have tried to jump out of the vehicle. She may have tried to get away or scream, and that's why she was killed. And it's possible that, you know, Nancy or Joey were not cooperating. It's not really known for sure, but it's just a possibility that they can all be connected, and just one of them wasn't murdered because they said of the ability to control. But to this day, and this is about 16 or so years later, they have never captured the killer of any of these individuals. They've never captured anyone for the abduction of Jane Doe or for the abduction of the second woman. They don't know if they are connected for sure. They strongly believe they are probably connected, just given the proximity, where these all happened, the way they happened. The crimes are very similar. Jane Doe was bound with items similar to what Nancy and Joey were bound with. Randi didn't have any bindings on her because she was thrown from the vehicle, probably because what they think was that she was trying to get out. But at the same time, it could be completely randomly different. And that's an issue because it's really hard to investigate when you don't know for sure. But it sounds like they're investigating it along the lines of that these are all connected. But as of now, they are no closer into knowing who did this. They have no physical evidence to tie to anybody. Not a single soul. They don't have any witnesses who can provide better descriptions of what may have happened. No one heard anything. No one saw anything. All of the people that could have potentially been suspects, like a husband or a son or the men who found the phone and the credit cards, all of them have essentially been cleared, that they could not have committed the actual murders that they were connected to. And so they're left with just a big question mark. We have 2 women and a young girl murdered. For what? For a few $100 each? Clearly committed by someone who just doesn't care. A sociopath, psychopath, what have you. But police in Boca Raton are asking for the public's help in providing any information that may help lead to the capture of this one murderer or multiple murderers, multiple assailants. And killers love to talk. They love to chat about what they've done. They love to brag. So if you have any information about any of these cases, please contact the Palm Beach County Crime Stoppers at 1-800-458-TIPS. Any information at all, the smallest detail may be the biggest thing to break the case wide open. And maybe you can help solve 3 murders. But that is it for this case, True Crime of Rooney Dooney Dingleberry Dongs. I hope you found it interesting. As usual, if you have tripped, fallen, and stumbled your way into this, hello, I'm Mike. I tell true crime stories, like I said at the beginning, so please give me a subscribe if you like this kind of thing, and follow me over on TikTok, like I said at the beginning. And I also have a Discord server. I sell merch. All of that's linked in the link tree in the description of this video below. And that is it. That's it for this case, this video, this... I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, it's been nice talking to you. We'll catch you on the flip side, radical bruh. Oh, God, Jesus. I don't know what I'm doing. I never know what I'm doing. Anyway, ta-ta for now. See ya with my eye holes. You'll see me. I won't see you because I can't see you because that'd be weird if I can see you. When you guys see me, I'm bad at editing videos. It's a pattern. It's a very disturbing pattern. So, bye.